So, political philosophy. I know, it sounds dry, right? Like something you'd find in a dusty corner of a library. But we're going to look at it a bit differently today. We're going to treat it as what it really is, a disturbing undertaking. And right away, I'm sure you're asking, why? Why should I care about some dusty old books from thinkers who've been dead for, what, centuries? Millennia even? And you know what? That's a totally fair question to ask. I mean, it's so easy to think that whatever Plato or Machiavelli had to say has zero to do with our lives today. You know, with social media, global terrorism, all the crazy complexities of the modern world. It all just feels so far away, doesn't it? But what if that's completely the wrong way to look at it? What if this isn't about the past at all? What if it's this active, challenging thing that's actually all about right now? Something that makes us question the very ground we're standing on.
Okay, so to get why it's so disturbing, we've got to start with this really interesting contradiction that's baked right into the field itself.
So, on the one hand, you could look at political philosophy as just another box on the shelf, right? It's a subfield of political science, sitting there next to American government, comparative politics, stuff like that. But on the other hand, it's not just a box on the shelf. It's the shelf itself. It's the very foundation of the whole discipline. It's where all the biggest, most fundamental questions come from, the ones that frame everything else we study. So, how do we study this stuff? Well, usually it's by reading the great books. But let's be real for a second. That whole approach, it brings up some pretty big and honestly very valid problems right off the bat. I mean, think about it. Who even decides which books are great? The list can feel completely random, and the whole thing can just turn into this academic contest to see who sounds the smartest. It's so easy to feel intimidated by these huge names and just kind of nod along instead of actually thinking for yourself. And the biggest question of all, what in the world can Aristotle tell us about globalization or terrorism? And here's where it gets really weird. You look at other fields, right? Modern economists, they don't really read Adam Smith anymore. Psychologists aren't assigning Freud on day one. So why? Why does political science almost uniquely keep going back to the beginning? Why are they still obsessed with Aristotle and Locke? And the reason isn't because the field is stuck in the past or hasn't made any progress. No, it's because the value of these books isn't where you think it is. It's not about their answers, it's about their problems. You know, the famous economist John Maynard Keynes had this incredible quote about it. He basically said that all these so-called practical men, the ones who think they're too busy for ideas, are usually just the unwitting slaves of some long-dead economist. And these madmen in authority, they're just channeling the ideas of some academic scribbler from a few years back. The point is, these ideas are way more powerful than we give them credit for. And that's the key right there. We don't read these books to find a checklist of solutions for today's problems. That's not the goal. We read them because they ask the big, permanent questions about justice, about freedom, about how to live together, with a kind of clarity and depth that honestly has never been beaten. Okay, so let's make this concrete. Let's see how this works in practice by looking at one of the oldest and most important questions of all. And it all centers on one powerful idea. And that idea is the regime. Now, when you hear that word, you probably think the government, right? But in political philosophy, it's so much bigger than that. The regime is a society's entire way of life. It's the whole shebang. Its form of government, sure, but also its moral habits, its customs, the sentiments that make a people who they are. It's a society's unique character, its ethos. So, yeah, it includes the formal government stuff like how our office is distributed, who's in charge, one person, a few people, or everybody. But it also includes all the informal things, the shared morals, the customs, even religious practices. And maybe the most important part is this. What does that society praise? What does it look up to? If you want to really understand a society, you have to know what it admires. So, once you start to see that there are all these different kinds of regimes out there, democracy, aristocracy, you name it, a really big and honestly a really tough question just pops up. You can't avoid it. And the question is, which one is best? Just by looking at all the different ways we've tried to organize ourselves throughout history, we're forced to ask that ultimate question. What is the best way for us to live together? And this question creates this deep tension, one that Aristotle pointed out ages ago. It's the tension between being a good citizen and being a good human being.
See, a good citizen is loyal to their own country and its laws simply because they're theirs. Patriotism is all you need. But a good human being, their loyalty is to what is good, period, wherever they find it, just because it's good.
Abraham Lincoln actually hit this nail right on the head when he was talking about Henry Clay. He said, Clay loved his country, sure, partly because it was his own, but mainly because it was a free country. His primary loyalty wasn't just to a piece of land, it was to an idea, freedom, that's bigger than any one nation. And this leads to a pretty startling conclusion, doesn't it? The person who is truly searching for what is best, let's call them the philosopher, can never really be 100% loyal to any society that actually exists. They'll always feel a little bit like an outsider, because their real loyalty is to an ideal, and no real country can ever perfectly live up to that. And that brings us full circle, right back to the beginning and why this whole thing is so important. And, well, so disturbing. You see, political philosophy exists in the gap. It lives in the space between the is and the ought, between the world as we see it and the world as we think it should be. It thrives on that tension. And that is why it's a disturbing undertaking, because when you really dive into these questions, you might not come out the same. It can shake your most fundamental loyalties. It can completely change how you view your own world and your role in it. But for all that disturbance, there's something you get in return, and it's the passion of the search itself. You know, the ancient Greeks had a word for this intense, passionate desire to know the best way to live. They called it eros. It's more than just love. It's a deep, driving yearning. So I want to leave you with this question. What if this whole thing, this study of political philosophy, what if it isn't just some dry academic exercise? What if this difficult, disturbing, passionate quest for what is truly best is actually one of the highest tributes we can possibly pay to love?